I went down last weekend, which means I get to crash test some gear for you guys so that you hopefully don't have to. I'll start off by saying that I have not been sponsored or paid by these guys. So these are gloves that I purchased with my own money. They are ones that I thought looked really cool in terms of the features and the protection they provided. So now that I've gotten to crash test them, let's go through them, let's see what damage happened to them, and let's see if there's any recommendations that I would have, or also, would I buy them again? So the left side definitely had less damage in the crash overall. I did not have any damage through the palm section. I just really didn't set my hand down that way. I did have it down on the track a little bit this way, and we can see some damage here. So we've got a little bit of damage over this kind of really big carbon fiber protection of your wrist bone, which is great. You love to see that because that's going to very specifically protect your wrist bone right here. Which is a common one to fracture and kind of a complicated one to fix in terms of getting pins and stuff in there. So that's one you really want to prioritize protecting there. Same with the knuckles. Got a ton of protection here. There's a bunch of padding underneath here, and they do have this hard carbon fiber. You can see the hard carbon fiber actually did eventually wear through. When I crashed, I went down, I think I'd gotten the bike down to about 95 miles an hour before I went down. So almost triple digits. That's going to be one of the fastest crashes that you're going to go down on. A lot of corners are going to be a lot slower than that. And so considering the amount of force involved in the crash and the amount of sliding at the speed that I was going, these held up exceptionally well. You would have had to wear through quite a bit more carbon before you got to a point where these were going to be problematic for your knuckles. So this side held up quite well. Let's talk about the right side. So the right side's where we probably had a bit more damage. So they have these two separate kind of knock sliders here, and you can see there's actually some damage from sliding on these. I'm a huge proponent of these two. They protect these two wrist bones on each side, and a lot of times you'll see other manufacturers will only have like one of these. Maybe they'll have some protection over here, but having both of them is really important. Protection up here, that held up well. There was obviously an impact there. There's some scraping on the leather. That's kind of very typical. And this side, I think, really slid a lot more on this edge side. And so that's where we sustained probably most of the damage, and we can walk through that. So you've got some damage throughout here, but all this held up pretty well. This did not wear through there. Stitching held up pretty well there. And then here's kind of my one critique of the gloves. This stitching and the material here kind of came apart. And what I would love to see is that this kind of more protective material comes down a little bit further in here. And let me show you on the other glove what I think happened here. When these gloves, I don't know whether it's how they broke in or just kind of the way they're designed, you can see this black leather, which is much softer leather intended to be on your palms. When I bend my knuckle, that's really kind of like on the seam there. I would love to see that protection come a little bit further around that knuckle. Again, I don't know whether this is just how mine broke in, and that's just kind of the path of least resistance for the knuckle to bend there, if it's intended to go further over. But that would be my one point of feedback is, you know, obviously that black leather, one of the things I love about these gloves is how good the feel is and how broken in they are. Kind of as soon as you put them on, there is essentially no break-in period on them. They have incredible feel right out the box, but that comes at a cost, which is that there's a little bit less protection. And so what I would love to see is that the thicker leather comes around the edge there. But overall, if we're talking about close to triple-digit crashes, and the only issue that I had was a little tiny scrape on my otherwise perfectly good and healthy hands, I'm going to take that all day. So in terms of, am I going to buy these gloves again? Absolutely. These are the Racer High Per gloves. So they're going to be in the middle, if I remember correctly, between most amount of feel and most amount of protection. So they're kind of right in the middle there. They offer like a great benefit of both of them. I'm absolutely going to go buy some new ones.